Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here, and let's jump right into the questions in part 2 of the Monday Q&A. First question, why does loose skin not snap back at higher body fat? Well, it can to some extent, but it rarely does it at the amount that we would want. And the reason this seems to happen is that the more connective tissue you have going through a given amount or a given area of body fat, the less blood flow it tends to get, so you lose fat there slower. And it's not to say that you don't lose total body fat at the same rate, but there are factors, genetic and structural and hormonal factors, that will determine where you lose body fat. The fat that is stuck to the layer of your skin, that lowest layer of your skin, has a lot of connective tissue from the skin holding it in place there, and so it gets less blood flow, so you tend to lose it from the in out. So your belly fat, you tend to lose what's closer to the muscle first. And there's even some studies in that with athletes that they lose fat very close to the muscles immediately, because it has to do with the fact that all of the heat that their muscles produce tends to stimulate more blood flow to those areas, interestingly enough. So you lose it from the muscle tissue outward is a general rule, not completely, but that is the bias in there as far as where you're losing it. So you tend to lose that layer right there at the skin at the very last, and since it has all that connective tissue holding it to the skin, as you lose the other fat, the skin and the fat that's above it gets pulled loose, whereas normally it's held relatively tight. But if you've lost a significant amount of it, it tends to let that fat come loose. And so what you're actually seeing with loose skin is loose fat, because skin itself can shrink within a matter of days. It's a very dynamic organ. It's living, and it tends to have a very, very rapid rate of cell turnover. So it is very adaptable, but as long as it has connective tissue holding it to that large sheet of fat, it's not going to shrink up. And so therefore, until you remove that layer of fat clinging to it, sometimes it's not going to tighten up at the rate that you want it to. And that's just the reality of it, because of the connective tissue holding it to that layer of loose fat. So loose skin is really loose fat. All right, next question. How do fitness models and most athletes have no acne when, according to you, they're mostly enhanced? This is very simple. You get acne for a number of reasons. There are biological pathways in the body that cause you to get acne. And not just steroid users, but everybody. And steroids only activate that by one pathway in the body. They don't activate the others. It's because the androgen receptors in them, and some of these are more prone to it than others, because they are somewhat tissue selective depending on the drug. They bind to the androgen receptors in the sebaceous glands of your skin. Those sebaceous glands are what produce oil on your skin. So the anabolic steroids, now keep in mind the other drugs don't cause this, the growth hormone, the insulin, none of those things, even EPO, none of those other drugs cause this, but just the anabolic steroids and the testosterone do. But when they bind to those sebaceous glands, it causes them to excrete more oil. It gives you skin that is more oily. Therefore, more bacteria can breed and grow on it. If it gets in just the under layers of it, as that bacteria spreads down into the skin layers, your body will encapsulate it in pus, and that's where you get acne. So steroid-induced acne is 100% avoidable. You just have to practice better hygiene and continually clean the oil off your skin better, and that will prevent 95% of cases of it. And people like models particularly tend to have good hygiene. They spend a lot of time working on their appearance in general and grooming themselves, so they tend to be very clean individuals, and they're going to use skin products and whatever it takes to keep the acne lower. It's very simple. And if they do happen to get a bit, then the makeup artists, the photo shoots, can just cover it up with makeup so that you don't actually see the acne that they do have. And as far as athletes, I've seen plenty of professional athletes covered in acne, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sorry, I've had close family members of mine in the NFL, and anyone who pulls my background knows I'm not bullshitting on that. And so I've been around NFL players, and they have acne, so I don't know where in the hell you're getting that. All right, last question in this series. How would you increase knockout power? I've covered this a bit in discussing training for martial arts, but by focusing on speed, strength, and explosive power. Very, very low reps, preferably with things like accommodating resistance and doing speed work with bands. You do speed squats with bands, you do speed benches with bands, to where you train yourself to have more explosive speed and more speed strength. You're going to hit harder on a punch or a kick, because you're training yourself to accelerate faster and produce more force through speed. And that's what's going to give you more power at the end of a punch or end of a kick, is the ability to move your hand or your foot faster. And that's what's going to give you knockout power. But that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you next time.